I'm President Colin Wood, Joel Sains, joined here tonight by Danielle Gelehrter. If I mispronounce your name, I apologize.
That's okay. I haven't figured out how to pronounce it yet either. So
Oh my gosh. Terror at Colin Wood. So, what got you into Dark Shadows?
what got me into Dark Shadows, Jewel? Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me onto your show. And you asked me back in August, and I said I would get back to you. And I'm sorry it took me so long I apologize for that. You have a wonderful YouTube channel, and I was just enjoying your interview with the wonderful ladies from Between the Shadows, Karen, Kristen, and that was wonderful. What got me into Dark Shadows was my uncle Valdemar, and that is his name, Valdemar. We call him Uncle Val for short, but he's my family is Portuguese. They're from the Azorean Islands, and they came to America in the 60s, the mid 60s. And my uncle, who was the youngest of the family, got really into American pop culture on television. Like he started watching all the American TV shows like, the 66 Batman and Star Trek and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and all of that stuff, Lost in Space. He was the Spider-Man cartoon, like all of that stuff. And Dark Shadows was like his favorite. He was a monster kid. He was into like all the classic horror films and famous monsters of filmland and all that. And so when I came around in the 70s, when I was born in the early 70s, and he passed all of that on to me. Like he would tell me stories about Barnabas Collins and about it was like these these just moments from the show that he would describe. He would do imitations of Jonathan Frid. He was like really into Dark Shadows, and he gave me all his like famous Monsters of Filmland magazines, including the one with the wonderful Basil Gogos painting of Barnabas on the cover, and his bubblegum cards, the pink set and green set that he had. Like he'd give those all to me. So I was little. I was scared. I'd look at that. I didn't want to look at the fangs, the Barnabas fang. I was like scared but fascinated at the same time, So I just always, from ever since I can remember, I knew what Dark Shadows was. And then as we go into like the early 80s, maybe like 82-ish, Uncle Val got a VCR. He was the first person I ever knew who had a VCR. It was a big clunky RCA VCR, a big machine, and he got a friend of his used to give him tapes, like copies, bootleg tapes of all movies and stuff like the Wolfman. The first time I ever saw the Wolfman and the Bride of Frankenstein and all that was with Uncle Val. And one of the things he finally got was tapes of Dark Shadows right at around that time, like early on when he got the VCR. I remember him telling me, and my mom, who used to watch Dark Shadows too in the 60s, he said, I got Dark Shadows. I got tapes of Dark Shadows. And so, he was like, let's watch it. I'll put it in. And he put it in and we sat down and I was hooked. The first episode I saw was the first syndicated episode where Willie frees Barnabas from the coffin, and that hand coming up from the coffin, grabbing Willie by the throat, grabbed me by the throat too. And I was hooked. Became obsessed with it and asked my uncle endless questions about the show. I drove him up a wall because I asked him so many questions about the show. And then a little bit, the tapes ran out at one point, and then Channel 58 out in Vineyard Haven, which is out in the Cape Cod area, they started showing Dark Shadows. It was a UHF channel, so he got like an antenna, so we were able to watch Dark Shadows, and they ran it all the way up till parallel, like May 1970. So it was like 1970 parallel time, and then ended again. Like there were no more episodes for the syndication package, but luckily the MPI tapes started coming out shortly after that, and Sci-Fi Channel started running it. But so I collected all the MPI tapes. That's a very long-winded answer to your question.
Take all the time you need. But when you first saw Barnabas, here's this vampire, right? But he didn't really act like a vampire. He's gentlemanly, right?
Mm.
What did you think of that?
Oh gosh, he was so otherworldly almost. Like you could tell he came from another time. Like he just was courtly. I mean, he was I think Vicky describes him as almost courtly, and he had that genteel side to him that was very refined and but then when you but then when you see the contrast to that, when you see him alone with Willie and he says, "Go now." And he points, and you're like, "Oh, there's a real dark side to, like, he's, you kind of know, he's a vampire, but you see that side to him, and Frid was brilliant at playing that contrast between those different sides of his nature. So it was immediately a complex character portrayal right off the bat. And I love Lugosi and I love Lee. I love those actors and their Draculas, but the complexity is not as present because Frid, he always says he loved playing against those shades of gray. He loved playing that.
I like the fact that when he comes out, one of my favorite moments is now the first person we ever meet that knows Josette is the Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
But so you think, you're not expecting really to meet somebody, because I watch these from the very beginning on Sci-Fi,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like you're expecting, as a viewer, as someone who was a viewer when I first watched them, like, it's not like you're expecting that again. So here's this guy who comes out of the coffin. I knew what he was from watching Lugosi and watching Lee. I knew I knew when he showed up. I'm like, oh shit. Just slam the door, lock it, whatever you got to do. But I'm just like, but no, he's like all gentlemanly and stuff. So one of my favorite parts is he's walking in the old house. He's standing in the old house, and it's after David tells him about the ghost of Josette. And he's looking up at the portrait, and he starts talking to her. And the way he talked to it, there was so much emotion in it. And I'm like, I've never seen Lugosi or Lee do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, what that scene right there, other than how he looked and how he, postured himself, really, was what really separated, for me, him from them.
Yeah.
In a weird way.
Yeah. Definitely.
What did you think of all the ghosts? You got Josette coming out of the portrait, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of that?
When Josette came out of the portrait?
Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing. That was just chill inducing. I mean, it was such a cool visual, first of all, just like a cool effect and remarkable that they pulled that off on a daytime television show in the 60s, to have. I can only imagine. I love imagining like how people reacted when they first saw that happen on television. Like they're watching this gothic romance eerie show, certainly, but then all of a sudden you have this like spectral presence coming out of the portrait. It was cool. Like I thought it was creepy and awesome. I loved it.
I was just shocked. I'm thinking they're showing the old house, and you see this portrait, and this ghost is walking out. I'm like, my mouth hit the floor. She starts dancing around. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Had you known anything about Dark Shadows before you started watching it on the Sci-Fi Channel? Oh, so you came in just like cold on like without any previous. Oh, I love that.
my,
Yeah, that's cool.
my mother, God bless her, her soul. She took me and my brother when we were very young in 1990 and sat us down and showed us John Carpenter's Halloween. That's the first thing I ever watched.
Mhm.
And from then on, we had a crash course in horror, thanks to my mother. Mainly because my mother went through the controversy of the parents complaining about Silent Night, Deadly Night in the theaters.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my mother always told us, look, it's 1000% bullshit that they did that. And I don't ever want it to be said that someone else, I'm showing you horror to show it to you for two reasons. Number one, I'm showing it to you too, so you know the difference between fiction and reality. So from then on, I was basically left to myself after whenever I watched The Exorcist came soon after, that's what shocked me the most. When you see someone's taking a crucifix and stabbing himself, it's sort of shocking. It's like, because I was very young at the time as a kid. So I was like, oh my God. Then in the mid 90s, my mom would always, by that time, was asking me what I was watching, because I was always watching something different. I had watched Kolchak actually prior to Dark Shadows, which was weird. So here's this show coming on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I just see this girl sitting on this train, and she says, my name's Victoria Winters. I'm thinking, okay, I'll watch this. And I was hooked from then on. I mean, Victoria is my favorite character, so it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing to watch. Like, even from the beginning episodes are very, very interesting. I know many people consider Victoria a dumbed down character, but I don't, simply because of the things I was going through at home. She gave, this kid strength to just, here's this woman who stood up against Roger, Liz even, Ghost, Phoenix, she was not afraid. And she showed that courage, which I love. In many ways, what many have tried to do about female protagonists in future horror movies, Vicky had done prior, really, in my mind. So
she's definitely an iconic character for sure. She was great, especially, I mean, I agree, like, especially in that first year of the show. And even when she's like, when she goes to 1795, it's just definitely, this is the character that everybody's like wants that resolution for her. And it would be nice to get that if this Dark Shadows reincarnation happens, which it sounds like it's going to. I interviewed Mark, and he's very determined to see this through. So he's also a hardcore fan who wants to like wrap up certain dangling plot lines and stuff. So like, it would be great to see that come to fruition, at least in that regard. Definitely.
That's a friend of mine asked me, he goes, what has you most excited about this potential new series? I said, honestly, what I love the most is the people involved in it, like Mark B. Perry, are fighting like hell for it. I mean, just that's what really gets me as a fan most. I mean, because most people might just give up by now, and to see that sort of passion in someone else that you see in fans like you or me and anyone else, it means a lot.
Yeah, he is a horror fan. He definitely is. Yeah.
So I have a question for you. How would you bring Barnabas back?
How would I bring Barnabas back? Well, okay. It's very difficult to do that, because Jonathan Frid is so identified with Barnabas. And I enjoyed Ben Cross in the 91 series. I thought he did an admirable job. They did an interesting thing in those Big Finish audios, where they kind of a Doctor Who kind of a situation where he's in a new body, played by Andrew Collins does his voice. I think I would, if you got to have Barnabas. Look, if you're going to do Dark Shadows, you have to have Barnabas. It's I I had a theory that it's like he was somehow locked back in the coffin, chained back in the coffin to protect others and to protect himself. Like the vampirism was just consuming him, and he got locked, and he's released again in the present day. I would recast, but with an unknown actor, just like Frid was an unknown actor, and with a actor with a Shakespearean background, who is a Shakespearean trained actor, because I think you have to have somebody who's classically trained to really capture the full essence of what Barnabas.
Yeah.
You need to go to the theater, and all of those actors from most of those actors from Dark Shadows were theater actors. And I'm not knocking Hollywood. There are some excellent actors out there, but you got to go to the stage, I think, for especially for Barnabas.
I'm going to quote a friend of mine, and it's something me and him were talking about too, Butch Rosenbaum. You don't want someone who's too pretty.
No,
Right?
he has to kind of cadaverous a little bit.
You don't want someone who looks like an actor, really. And none of that might sound weird, but one issue I have with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind the actress they cast. It's just she's too pretty. Like, she's good actress, but that's just it. She's an actress, and
Hollywood is all about the look, having this look. And Barnabas is not. Yes, Barnabas was like a sex symbol in the 60s and early 70s. He was on the cover of tons of teen magazines, but he looked like a vampire. Like he had, Jonathan Frid himself said, he went in for the audition and there were all these cadaverous looking actors, and apparently I out cadavered them all. I don't know how to feel about that. It's like, yes, he has to have a bit of a cadaverous look to him, gaunt, and like, I think he should have a bit of that about him. I agree. Don't go for that was one of the problems. I liked the 91 series, but I think that was already going on. Like, I was like, why does Barnabas have a tan? He's a vampire. Like, he's been out in LA. So in certain scenes, it's like Ben Cross kind of very tanned with the hair. He should look eccentric too.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will say. A couple of things in the Depp movie that I can say, okay, he had the pointy bangs. I'm like, that's part of Barnabas's look, the bangs, the ring, the cane, the cloak. There are certain the Inverness, cloak. There's certain things I think Barnabas should have, and that, like, he has the pointy bangs. Own it. Like, don't give him a 90s pompadour or Alec Newman with the like sexy look. Alec Newman's a really good actor, but it's like,
right.
Let's have him look a little eccentric,
I hope, like, for them to bring Barnabas back, like, in a weird way. I know they're going to have new Collins family members. I can, younger generation. So, to me, there's got to be somebody watching the younger generation. And I would have this guy named Marcus Graham sneaking into Colin Wood, taking pictures with his camera in the town, and one day one of the kids just spots him on the grounds, and he runs off without them catching him. So one of the Collins kids, the same Collins kid, he's in town with a friend, and the person who's taking the camera, you see their hands that they're old, they're aged, and they snap the photo of something happening to the two boys. Nothing dangerous, but something that they know isn't right. And so the boys, this time they both see him, and they chase him, and he gets away. So the one Collins boy would be like, whoever that is, they know how to get in the house, and they know this town. So you're sort of hinting that it's someone familiar of Dark Shadows. It's somebody from the past. And you would see this photo studio, and on the glass it would say photographer Marcus Graham. And the person walks into the door, and they develop the picture, and whatever he took a picture of is what you would see, what he saw, whatever that would be. And you see the hand sort of slam, and he looks up, and you look up, and it's David Selby. It's Quentin.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for the long drawn out.
No, that's great. Like, so you would have an explanation as to why he began to age again?
Yeah. Maybe in some weird way, you know, that maybe the painting didn't turn him into a werewolf. Maybe the gypsies forgave him. You know, who knows? Whatever their explanation would be. I'm sorry, my phone just went off. But um, so whatever their explanation would be, and he would walk towards this portrait, and would be of a pirate ship, and he would remove it, and there would be this safe, and he opens it, and in there there's these tubes, and he removes it, and there's vials of blood, and it says B. Collins.
Oh, okay.
And you sort of somewhat, I don't know if they could do this, maybe get somehow, some way, by the act of God, use Grayson Hall's voice and do, you have to only bring him back in an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And he would, to me, the one person Julia would trust would be Quentin.
Yeah.
You know, to know where Barnabas would be buried.
Sure. Yeah.
And he would go to where that is, and he would just, you know, go down into the crypt. Maybe it's in London, who knows? And he would pop the vial of blood, and he would say, "We need you, old man. We need you now more than ever." And he would dump the blood, and you would see the onyx ring to know that this is Barnabas.
So you imagine that he had been destroyed at some point, or was he just chained back in his coffin again?
He just died of old age.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. He was mortal. Okay, I see.
He was mortal, right? Because by the end of the series, he was mortal.
Yes. Yep.
I'm sorry for lack of
explanation. No. I was like, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep.
He dies of just old age. He dies of natural causes. But again, in the series, Julia, you know, she did do those experiments on him, and she would have had to draw on blood from him while he was a vampire. Mm-hmm. So, and she kept it. To me, she would have held on to this, because as smart as Julia was, I gotta believe she maybe sensed, what if this isn't all over? You know, the one person to me who would be smart enough to come to that realization would be her. Mm-hmm. You know, because she was just super smart. Yeah. And so that's why she gave that to Quentin. And Barnabas is back. Now, I hope they have a way. I'm excited for this. Like, I told my wife, I just hope it gets picked up so we can watch this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, don't give up hope. That's
right.
That's the message I when Mark, you'll see the interview with Mark, but he's very confident and very positive that this is going to happen. You know, he's very, in fact, recently it just pitched to a couple of streaming services. So, and I think that's our best bet, is this streaming channels that exist out there. So I'm hopeful to see that.
Who's your favorite character?
Oh God, that's impossible. That's an impossible question to answer. How can I answer that? All of them. There's no Dark Shadows character that I don't like. I mean, I hate to be, stereotypical, but Barnabas. I mean, of course, Barnabas, but he's amazing. But in addition to Barnabas, I love Quentin, Angelique, Julia, Count Patofi is so much fun to watch. I love David, Carolyn. It's just, the list goes on and on. You know, I can't. We'll be here all night. I'll just name every character from the show. Those are some of my favorites, though, definitely.
I hope they get at least most of the original cast at least appear in this in some fashion. Mm-hmm. That would be really nice to give that to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really care for the 2012 movie either. I'll watch it, but it's funny, tomorrow I'm like sort of doing a Monday morning quarterback on it. But
there's I watched it when it came out in the theater. I haven't watched it since, but there are a few things that I can say that are positive about it. You know, I did like, you said, the bangs. I liked that they used the house has that Seaview Terrace kind of vibe to it, with the tower and everything. Like the visuals, as with all Tim Burton films, like the visuals are very compelling to look at. I just thought the comedy. It's like, why are you guys are just saying you're big fans of the original show. Both of them are like constantly for years saying they're fans of Dark Shadows, and then it's like, why did you guys do a comedy then? Like, why it's like, this is a fish out of water comedy, and going down on Barnabas. It's like, what are you doing? Like, what fan would do that? It's like, that's the problem. It's whatever. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but steam will start coming out of my ears. It's like, if Tim Burton and Johnny Depp want to come and talk to me on Terror at Collinwood, I would be happy to host them and have them put them on trial. We can like when Trask puts Barnabas on trial with all his past victims, we'll just bring all the fans on and be like, you did this. Like, what is your defense for this?
We don't need a trial. Just it's
yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, I was telling a bunch of people, like, look, I've always felt the movie was rushed, and I'm not defending Johnny Depp by any means or anybody involved, but in the same sense, he was one of the busiest people in Hollywood at that point. Could he really just focus on doing that movie? And I said, I wish he would have. Sure. I remember a friend of mine, because I was trying to pay attention to who was being cast, and by this time they had a lot of people cast. They had Michelle Pfeiffer, and I was like, and they came up to me. He goes, "Hey, did you hear who got cast?" I'm like, "No, who got cast?" He said, "Alice Cooper." And I said, my initial reaction was, as Barnabas's dad, I'm giving the thumbs up. And then they're like, "No, as a Kim." I'm like, "Oh, Jesus."
That was problematic. I love Alice Cooper. Like, I like watching him perform. I saw him at the Cape Cod Melody tent years ago. But the thing is, it's like, why are you having Alice Cooper come in and do a performance as Alice Cooper at Collinwood when Dark Shadows is very clearly known for not doing stuff like referencing like bands and TV shows, and it's like very kind of in its own little strange world. So that pulled me out of it. As fun as it is to see Alice Cooper, it's like, I haven't played character. I'd rather have seen that too.
I remember I had a dream about Alice Cooper playing Joshua Collins, and he was this Dr. Joshua Collins.
Oh, interesting.
And Barnabas was, dead. He was a vampire, but he was, dead because you die before, to become undead. And I saw like Alice Cooper, like over Barnabas, like, breathe, goddammit, breathe, like trying to breathe life back into his dead son, and sort of Sarah crying, like, no. I'm thinking, where was this?
Yeah.
Where was any of this? And it's just like, it's just that crazy that they did not. To me, Dark Shadow should have been more than just one movie. This should have been, I hate to say, The Dark Knight, like the 3 film set, but that's what it should have been. 3 films individually, one at a time, instead of taking Dark Shadows and trying to squeeze. I don't even think they tried to squeeze in 1,000 episodes in 2 hours.
Should have squeezed Seth Grahame-Smith's script into the garbage, is what they should have done. They should have used the original. I would love to read the original script before Seth Grahame-Smith got his hands on it, because I'm curious, because I keep hearing it was like this gothic Godfather type saga, and I was like, I'm curious to read that. Like, I wonder what that was like. I'm sure that it will have probably eventually turn up, but I am curious about that.
What was your favorite musical score from the original series?
Oh God, there's so many good ones. That's a tough one to answer, but I'm gonna, I gotta go with Quentin's theme. I love, especially the gramophone version, where when Quentin's ghost, and just, I'd have nightmares about that, like getting possessed by Quentin's. I'd like David and Amy walking into the room, and you looking around, and then all of a sudden you hear that eerie old music playing, and it's like you just lose control of your own will. I love that Quentin's theme. I also really love the main title theme, of course, the Colin Wood theme with the narration. I love Pansy's theme. I'm gonna dance for you. I love that. That's I never tire of that one either. So many good themes in the show, and with Barnabas theme, like the Barnabas and Angelique in the original Media Sound Records CDs that came out, or records, the albums that came out. I think it's on the second album. It's a track called Barnabas and Angelique, and it's the theme that always plays when Barnabas is on. It's like this very eerie, melancholy sort of theme, and then the Angelique portion of it is that kind of spell casting evil theme, and it kind of bounces back and forth between the two. Those were really good albums, those Media Sound. I have the full, the complete collection. Those Media Sound albums were organized in such a way that each theme has a name, and they piece them together nicely. They're worth seeking out if for those who don't have them.
So, Burke Devlin, alive or dead?
Oh, I think he's alive. I think he somehow escaped that plane crash. Somehow he got out of that. And there's a big Finnish audio. Again, I don't consider those canon, but they're an interesting what if or parallel universe. And there is one with Burke and Maggie. It's Mitch Ryan came back to play Burke. It's called And Red All Over. And that's kind of what I'm thinking for Burke, is something similar to that, where he made some kind of bargain prior to, and my friend Eric and I talked about this a bit, like Burke, he's the Count of Monte Cristo, but how did he acquire his fortune? He had found, there's the oil wells and stuff, but maybe he made some sort of pact with some dark force. Maybe we can introduce the supernatural aspect into that, and maybe through that he was saved, but he owes somebody something in return. But I like to think that Burke is out there somewhere, because I would love to see Burke reunite with Vicky somehow, even though Peter Bradford's in the picture, so that would be an interesting dynamic too, a little bit of a triangle there, like Burke, Peter, and Vicky. That would have introduced a really cool complication, actually, into the show if they had brought Burke back. But yeah, I think he's alive.
So I have a strange question for you.
Yeah.
There's a house, that they call it the Seaview House, but it's the house of Caleb Sayer Collins.
Mm-hmm.
So what's up with Caleb in this house? Do you have any theories on this?
Oh, there's some dark stuff that happened. Like I would love for that storyline to get filled in, because they started down that road and then they dropped it. They dropped this because Vicky even says something to the effect of, when I look out this window, I can almost see, an old sailing vessel. There are hints of something preternatural at play there. And I think Caleb clearly was very eccentric, and nobody could inherit that house for 100 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and we never saw that timeline in the 1860s. We saw 1840, we saw 1897. We never saw 1860s, 1870s, and that's where Caleb would be operating. And I imagine him being this like really disturbed or like something out of a Poe story or a Lovecraft story, somebody who's dark, is a dark character, and there's something about that house that's unnatural. And I think that we would have gone down an interesting path with that. Jeff Thompson had a theory that would have led to a time travel storyline, and that they did it later with 1795. But when Vicky's talking about almost being able to see the past when she looks out the window, on the water, maybe that house would have been some kind of time portal or vortex to another time. I don't know. I'm not sure what they were going for, and I would love to know what they had in mind, like what they were going to do with that. We can only speculate, but there's some. Do you have any theories about it?
I've always felt that he never built the house to live in. Mm-hmm. That he never, and it's weird to say that, but I felt he built the house as a mechanism to somehow move through time. And he for whatever reason, I don't. Now they say Caleb is dead, but I've always gone with the horror theory. Unless you see a body, no one's dead. so, but I think in some weird way, either he is somehow moving through time and the house has sent him, and the house is always shifting back and forth. That's why Vicky sees what she thinks she sees. It's weird. And what led me to believe this is two things. One, The Wizard of Oz,
Oh,
and two, Howl's Moving Castle.
okay, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I was like, it made me think of Caleb's house. I'm thinking, I just wonder if Caleb's house has ever moved from where it was at. So,
Maybe so. I mean, that's fascinating. That would be definitely a really interesting thing to explore. Absolutely.
I hope they do get into it. It's crazy because they're just, like you said, they're standing there, her, Burke, and Barnabas, and I love the line, Mr. Collins, how do you see that sign so far away? You must have eyes like a cat.
Yeah, it's funny. And then later on, you see Barnabas, like later in the series, is like he's carrying a flashlight. I'm like, Barnabas, you don't need a flashlight. You could see in the dark. You was clearly you can. Maybe he does it. He has it just in case anybody runs into him, not to raise any suspicion.
I think so too. I think he just, hey, you know what? I better just take this to look human a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to draw too much attention to myself.
Yeah.
What did you think of Count Andreas Patofe?
Oh, like I said, mentioned earlier, he's one of my favorite characters. He is just so much fun to watch. He is just he was evil, but he's just charming and witty and just really fun to watch. And Thayer David was clearly having a great time playing that character. And I don't know, he's my uncle and I used to quote him all the time because he's very quotable, he's just, and how he'd always call Quentin my boy, that's my boy, but he's just, I love Count Patofi. I wish that he had been brought back. In fact, I'm shocked they didn't, because the writers all loved Count Patofi too. So maybe they were saving him, and then the show didn't end up getting, continuing. But I imagine that if Dark Shadows had continued past April 1971, we would have absolutely seen Count Patofi show up in the present, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I've always told friends of mine, I'm like, listen, Marvel can have that little Infinity Gauntlet. Dark Shadows had its own, and of Patofe. That gauntlet ain't nothing. But it's amazing. He's a hell of a character that even without the hand, he had power, which I found fascinating. And yet at the same time, when he gets the hand and King Johnny Romano dies, he's still wanting to get out of Dodge, like 1897. Like there's, I told my wife, I said, I think Patofe and the Gypsies sort of have this weird mutual respect for each other. And maybe Patofe just knows something we all don't about them Gypsies, because he seems a little scared of them.
Definitely is. I mean, he is an extremely powerful mage, and he's very different from like the Warlock archetype in Dark Shadows,
Right.
Judah Zachary or Nicholas Blair, which is always labeled as a Warlock. Although I ask people, like, is he a Warlock or a demon? They don't outright spell it out. In fact, what's your theory on that? Do you think Blair is a Warlock or a demon?
Neither.
Okay.
I don't think he's either. I think he's, I know this is going to sound weird. I think he's a sorcerer.
Okay.
Like that's like
Patofi too. He's like a sorcerer, like a mage,
But he's not quite. The biggest difference is he's working for somebody. He's working for the devil.
Yeah.
And I think between him and Angelique, they're given a portion, so much of like very little fraction of Satan's power. He goes, here, you can have this, and you can have this, but you're not even having close to all of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest difference, where Patofe is his own villain in a weird way, where he has his own power. He doesn't have to rely on any one person to give his power. He just wants his hand back.
I have but one god, and his name is Patofi.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I've heard that so many times from people, and I love it every time I hear it. It's like, yes, yes. Is the hand of Patofi still out there in your?
Totally, yes, 100% yes. Or if it's not the hand, if the hand is still attached, I think he's out there. If the hand is still attached to him, then the power of the hand exists somewhere. It's possible the gypsies got it back, like the descendants of King Johnny Romano got it back and got the power of the hand and perhaps transferred it into another vessel. But the power of the hand still exists, and I don't, whether it was severed from Patofi once again or whether it's still attached to him is up for debate. But yeah, it's out there, definitely.
I hope we get like the full, if they bring the gypsies back, and I hope they do, we get like the full explanation of the gypsies and their power, because I think there's more to there than what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, you have Patofi who fears them because they turned him into a werewolf. They turned Quentin into one, and it was just like, my God, these people, they got some sick power.
Yeah, well, it's they're, especially in particular the Romano tribe. He seems particularly terrified of them. So they're clearly powers and tapping into unknown forces at play there for sure. So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to explore that, or have a flashback to the Forest of Ajdan, where when that all went down, young Patofi, maybe we see that would be interesting to see how that took place. And then the unicorn, he killed the last known unicorn to exist was Patofi's, and he killed the unicorn when he was in werewolf form. So, and with the effects they can do now, they could actually probably pull that off in an interesting flashback scene.
Yeah, it would be nice, like if this happens, like we get a bunch of backstories, sort of like Patofe, Elizabeth, when she was younger. It would just be nice to see, to sort of fill a lot of these gaps in.
I'd like to see young Liz, like that would be really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Who would you like to see as young Elizabeth if they make it happen?
I don't know. I have to admit, like, I'm not really up on a lot of the current actors out there. Like, I don't know a lot of the young actors out there, so I don't know. You have any thoughts on? I think I heard you say something in that episode with Kara and Kristen about that. What was the actress you mentioned?
Now, she's German, so I don't know if she can do a British accent or not. I've only seen her in German, like, shows. So Lisa Vicari, and there's this picture of her where she looks like Liz. She just looks like Elizabeth, and I'm just like, my God, you look like Elizabeth, girl. Like, but again, I just think they have to cast who they think, really. It just. And I hope that if they do this, I'll just be excited if they do something with that character at all.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Phoenix, Laura?
Oh, I love Laura. It's such a weird, unusual, like unique idea to have a mythological phoenix in human form, and to reimagine what a phoenix is as this undead creature who's reborn and rises from the ashes, and her every intention is to immolate herself and her children in flames and return to the underworld. That is, wow, that is crazy stuff. Like, that's really amazing. I love Diana Malay as Laura. No, I can't imagine anybody else playing that part, because she herself was so otherworldly as an actress and as a person, that it just dovetailed perfectly into that role. It was absolutely awesome. Yeah.
There's moments that in shows or movies that they're trying to make you think that anything could happen, and when really the Phoenix is the first character to sort of hurt Liz.
Yeah.
And when they have that happen, I'm like, oh God, who's next?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that was terrifying.
This
Like,
is such a majestic, strong character. To take her off the chessboard is like huge. Definitely agree.
right. She's just like, I'm like, oh my God, they're no one's safe now.
Yeah.
That's sort of the illusion they gave that they're trying to give, and they sort of give it. They just punch you in the stomach, and I love them for it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I love in 1897 too, when it's Laura versus Angelique. I thought that was awesome too. Those were really great scenes.
What did you think of 1795, the introduction of Angelique?
Oh God, iconic. Like
Yeah.
that is Angelique is one of like the iconic characters of Dark Shadow, the legendary characters of Dark Shadows. Like, I mean, Barnabas, Angelique, Quentin, those are like the archetypes of Dark Shadows. And you could add Julia, I think, to that too, and start Vicky, although Vicky leaves the show at a certain point, but for sure, Barnabas, Quentin, and Angelique, she was great. I love it's so against what type, like she's a witch. So, what do you think of Margaret Hamilton, Wizard of Oz, dressed all in black hair, but no, this is, an angelic looking figure, blonde, blue eyes, and but but do anything to get what she wants, will cross any line, and tapping into diabolic powers to do it. And Laura Parker was brilliant as Angelique, and definitely a massive turning point in the series. Like, there are these points in the series where it's like, okay, this is a game-changing event in Dark Shadows, and Angelique is 100% one of those game-changing events for sure.
I forget who experiences this, but this is before they go back to 1795. Someone's in the mausoleum, and they hear laughter, and it's a woman laughing, but it's not Sarah. And I know it wasn't the Laura Parker Angelique laugh. I don't think they probably had casted her by that point.
No.
But do you think that was Angelique laughing?
Oh, maybe that's interesting. Sure, why not?
It's eerie too, because, and again, I forget the character that goes in. It may have been Julie, it may have been someone else, I forget. But it's like prior to it, and you could just hear this evil laugh. It's an evil woman laughing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like,
exactly, the laugh you're talking comes from a sound effects record, or sound effects library, but it sounds kind of Angelique-esque. It's the laugh they use during the Dream Curse too, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yes. Maybe it is her. Maybe it's like I don't know if the writers intended it, but I love that theory for sure.
It's eerie to listen to too. That's the cool part. What was your favorite part during the Leviathan arc?
Oh, wow. During the Leviathan, okay, I love when Chris Jennings turns into a werewolf. There's a couple of moments when he jumps through the old house window and goes like the werewolf senses Jeb. Wherever Jeb is, the werewolf knows where Jeb is, and he's like making a beeline for wherever Jeb is. So I love that scene where he jumps through the window and Jeb's like, "Oh no!" Like he finally comes face to face with the werewolf. I love that. Another scene I love. Oh, there's some great. I hate that Leviathans gets a bad rap because there's some awesome parts. I love Leviathan. I think it's an awesome storyline. It's weird. It's a very strange storyline, but I like it. When Nicholas Blair shows up and like out of nowhere, and it's like, let there be light. And it's Blair. And it's like, oh my God, Nicholas Blair. You know, I love that when he kind of comes in to kind of, you know, steer the ship back in the right direction. Bruno getting the werewolf when the werewolf is trapped in the mausoleum, and he's like, Bruno's like, you know, tormenting the poor. You feel bad for the werewolf, which is interesting because the werewolf is like this feral like killer. You know, you're supposed to feel bad for Chris Jennings, but the werewolf is like, you know, the werewolf is main prime directive is to kill and mangle people. He wants to kill, and you actually feel bad for the werewolf, you know. And then when the werewolf finally confronts Bruno, Bruno like tries to punch the werewolf, and the werewolf's like backhands Bruno. Just like, there's Bruno's done. Yeah, I just the strange Lovecraftian language that they use, and just like the each grain of what's that the what is I can't remember the quote. Each grain of sand will nourish the. I'm gonna mangle the quote on that one, but yeah, there's some key moments. I guess most of them were werewolf related, but I did enjoy the Leviathans a lot.
I love the breathing we get out of the Leviathan Arc. It was so creepy. It gave you this big batty feel.
Yeah.
You don't see it right away, but it's terrifying, and you know something big's coming.
Love it. What do you think it looks like, the Leviathan creature?
I think now I know it's not a part of Dark Shadows, but I think maybe the closest hint we get is in the movie Mandy. And because to me, that was the Leviathan people messing with him. And they could talk in these weird tone voices. So you see he goes on this ship, and they sort of do this halfway in cartoon. I think the Leviathan is just this shape-shifting snake alien creature that can take human form.
Yep.
And it can take any size at once and just kill you. But again, Jeb was supposed to be their, I guess, messiah, you know, if you want to put it that way. Mm-hmm. And so that failed. I don't think Jeb failing drove away the Leviathan. I think they just went back into hiding and are just waiting for another opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really excited to see, you know, if they bring back Judah Zachary. What did you think of Judah Zachary, the Warlock?
Oh, he's great. He's just scary. Definitely a scary character to introduce into the show. Just the whole way they introduced Judah Zachary with the head, the severed head, of very creepy, like definitely shades of The Thing That Couldn't Die in Black Sunday too, with the Mask of Baal. I love Judah, and the theme, that theme song, like always gave me goosebumps. You know, the Judah Zachary theme. That was a very cool character. The like really malignant. He is a malignant force of evil. One of the most evil characters in the show that they ever introduced. So.
Yeah. I hope that they have these group of people in a circle at like the headstone, and they're all in these hoods, and you see one of them holding a snake, and they pull back the hood, and it's Laura Parker, but she's not playing Angelique, and she just takes the machete and goes, "By the sacrifice of this Leviathan member, I bring you back Judah Zachary." Cuts the head off, and you bring back Judah. Like, why not? Because I hope they just bring back not just familiar characters, but have a fun mix of new, old. It's just going to be like so fun to watch and see what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What's something you want to see in a new series?
I would like to see, I'd like to see more classic horror tales, gothic tales, terror tales, incorporated into the mix of Dark Shadows and more supernatural creatures from folklore and literature incorporated into the show. I always say I'd love to see lot number 249 worked into the show because they never did a mummy. So I kind of would have liked to see a mummy storyline handled well. I think it would work, especially if they use Conan Doyle's tale as the source, the inspiration. But other things too, like the Haunting of Hill House, and so like an investigation team coming to Colin Wood to to do a paranormal investigation, a demonic possession storyline I think would be interesting. They never, because if Dark Shadows had kept going into the 70s, I guarantee they would have done a demonic possession, like, because The Exorcist was like a phenomenon. So I am sure they would have done some demonic thing in the show, especially they were headed in that way anyway with Judah Zachary with the Warlock and getting darker in that regard. So I think they may have done that. That would be interesting to see something like that.
Yeah, I did it like years and years and years ago. I did a story of a paranormal investigation team going to Colin.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be a natural. I think they did that in one of the Big Finish audios too at some point.
It's like it's a haunted house. How do you not go, right?
Yeah, and that would tie into a nice echo of the Haunting of Hill House too, and throwing in some of that story into the mix.
Is there, if you could bring any fictional character, you could choose more than one, to Collinsport, who would you bring?
Oh, okay. This is tough. Because Dark Shadows is so hermetically sealed in its own little bubble, so they don't reference other things.
Right.
I mean, early on they did a couple of times, but what I would do, one thing I would have loved to have seen is in the 91 series they had Barbara Steele in it, which was they had a horror star, legendary horror star Barbara Steele is in the 91 series. It would have been cool if in the 60s and early 70s if they had, and during when Julia goes to 1840 and we have that scene in the present in the old house with Barnabas and Professor Stokes, and Professor Stokes had gone to Europe to find the one man in Europe that he knew who could come bring him back to exorcise Gerard Stiles. What if that one man had been Professor Van Helsing?
Yeah.
As played by Peter Cushing, because the Hammer films were going at that time. So what if they had brought Peter Cushing as a guest character into Dark Shadows as Professor Van Helsing? That would have been interesting. Another one that I think would have been cool is Vincent Price was doing all those Poe films for Roger Corman. What if they had like a descendant of the Usher family, like maybe somebody from the line of Roderick Usher shows up and it's Vincent Price playing a member of the Usher family. Something like that maybe would work in that genre. If we're going to go outside the box, like Doctor Strange might be fun. Dr. Stephen Strange, or Kolchak would be kind of fun to have Kolchak show up there. Maybe like Willie Loomis and Kolchak, Sherlock Holmes could be really cool too. Like Sherlock Holmes would be interesting as well.
I think the one character I haven't named, but I named on Twitter, was Yusuke Yuramoshi, who in this series Yu Yu Hakusho was this kid who was killed, and he was charged with being the spirit detective of the underworld, basically catching ghosts and making sure they didn't bother the living. I think he would be, like, if they ever did like a live action, it would be a lot of fun. But knowing studios, they'd probably mess it up. So sorry. Oh goodness. Who's your favorite villain? Is it Patofe, or where do you rank them?
It's a tough question to answer because there's so many, because even the protagonists of Dark Shadows were villains at one time, or still are sometimes, go back to being villainous. So like, because Barnabas was a villain, and sometimes still could be a villain, Angelique too, and Quentin. But I guess we're gonna go straight up antagonist from start to finish. I'm gonna go with Patofi. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Count Patofi. Yeah, he was just so much fun to watch.
Do you hope, like, we get a lot of, because they weren't afraid to get into the occult with the original show. Do you hope that's still a continued theme here with the new one?
Oh yes, yeah, they have that has to be part and parcel with it.
Yep. Is there any theories you have, fan theories, on any character?
Fan theories on any character? Yes. In fact, I mentioned this when I was talking to Mark B. Perry, and I mentioned it when I was interviewing Rich Hanley when we talked about the Adam storyline. My theory with Adam is I know Sam Hall wrote the article about, but that's, again, not canon. That's Sam Hall's wishes for what he would see. It's not Dan Curtis saying, yes, this is what would happen. It's not Gordon Russell. It's not, okay. But a lot of fans feel like, oh, Adam got the scars removed and went on to live a normal life. No way. Absolutely not. Adam is the analog for the Frankenstein monster. Frankenstein monster doesn't have a happy ending. We want the Frankenstein monster to find happiness and acceptance. Of course we do. He doesn't, though. He's just becomes more and more bitter because of the way people treat him, because they treat him horribly. Everybody treats him like crap. So he becomes more, and that's what I see Adam becoming, more like the character from the Penny Dreadful series, like that, like more and more intelligent as he goes on. He's just going to evolve mentally into a genius, but he's going to be extremely bitter and as Rich called him, venomous. Like, I think that's where Adam's going to go. That's my theory on what happened to Adam. Scars didn't get removed. He probably took off, and went out into the world and just wound up getting into worse and worse views of humanity. That's how I see him becoming. Sadly, like, I don't, it would be nice to see a happy ending but this is Dark Shadows very rarely did that.
It's interesting because Adam has two teachers. He has Professor Stokes, and he has the Warlock, Sorcerer, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Nicholas Blair. But so he had two different teachers of lifestyle, and I think he took both with him, really. So his outlook is going to be either really glum or just really somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
I do think Adam's out there somewhere. I don't know what is going on with him, but it probably isn't anything good.
Yeah, and I would imagine he would come back. I'm surprised he never was brought back either. Like, later on in the series, it would have been interesting to see him come back. And that probably would have happened too. Like, if the show had kept going, maybe they would have brought him back at some point.
Okay, there's been a lot of actors and actresses in Dark Shadows. Is there an actor or actress you would have liked to see in a role that they didn't get to do? Not just in Dark Shadows, but in other places.
A role they didn't get to do. I'm gonna say that I would have liked to have seen. I would have. I'm gonna echo what Alexandra Moltke has said a few times. I would have liked to have seen her play a villainous character, or a monster, like something sinister. It would have been cool to see her, because I could actually see her doing it. Like, I think she could pull it off quite well.
Yeah, I've said this before. My favorite actor ever was Henry Fonda. Henry Fonda was known for playing good guys. Mm-hmm. Now they turned him bad in Once Upon a Time in the West. His character was a villain. If you can turn Henry Fonda bad, you can turn Alexandra bad, because
she would do
no one ever thought, well, Henry Fonda can't play a bad guy. Well, here's the thing. Yes, he can. Just give him a chance. Same thing with Alexandra. She could have played a villain easily. There's a moment during the Phoenix arc where she's a bit antagonistic, and she says the word 100 years. And the way she says it is a bit antagonistic. And it's like, there's some villain in that girl.
Yeah, I could see her do it. And on the flip side of that, it would have been interesting to see like Christopher Pennock play like a really good-hearted person. Like, Longworth is the closest he came, I guess, to that because but he had that Jaeger side to him, so that he was more and more enjoying being Jaeger. But I did like him as Cyrus because it was very different from what Pennock usually does.
I actually enjoyed him as Sebastian Shaw.
Sebastian Shaw, yeah.
I thought that was really interesting. He wasn't necessarily bad, but he was sort of neutral in a weird way, and he ends up doing good, trying to do right.
That's true. Right. You're absolutely right. He was arrogant. He was
Yeah,
quite arrogant, but he wasn't a bad person. He was under the thrall of a vampire and clearly, bitter about that. But yeah, I think you're right. He wasn't a bad person. He was,
right.
yeah.
I think the one theory I've always had is that Naomi Collins was this pirate that.
Yeah. I heard you talking about that when you were interviewing the ladies from Between the Shadows. Yeah.
So it's just there's a lot of like characters to like explore and like theorize where they are, where they've been. I don't like. I agree with you. Like Dark Shadows is very. It is what it is. It's dark, and a lot of the characters are probably either in situations that could be bad. I think the one character I want to see brought back is Chris Jennings. Hopefully,
I'd love to see Chris brought back. Yeah.
there's a world full of possibilities with this. Is there anything you want to add?
Um. Hmm. Is there anything I want to add?
Sure.
Like in terms of a storyline or in terms of I'd like to add more exploration of eras in the Collins family history that we haven't seen before. There are many time periods that we have never seen, and I would like, what was the Collins family like during those time periods? Like that, I'd really like to see more of that.
I hope like we really get into some way somehow the different branches of the Collins family.
Mhm.
There are many out there that we just don't hear about, I think. Whether it's a southern branch, whether it's an English branch, somewhere out there there's more Collins family members. And really, what about parallel time? Do you think we get any sort of parallel time at all?
Yeah, you gotta give a nod to parallel time. I think it would be absolutely awesome if they did parallel time, and anything new that came up. Like it's there, like that portal to another time band exists or multiple time bands. So it would be cool to see that. Or maybe it got sealed off at some point, but then it gets blown open again and totally, yeah.
Who's your favorite character from parallel time?
I'm gonna say probably Cyrus and Jaeger, like just
Yeah.
that. I love Jekyll and Hyde as a story, and I like them. I think that's well, I don't like Jaeger's a monster. Like he's just a horrible piece of garbage, but he's a monster. But he's fun to watch Chris Pennock play that character because he's unfettered. He's just like berserk. So and then the kind of nerdy, quiet Longworth, like I enjoy watching them, definitely.
I know we don't get to see her a bunch, but I really liked Laura Parker playing Alexis.
Yes,
I
yeah.
really like. I wish they would have kept her around a little. I know there's plot device they're using her to bring Angelique back,
Mhm.
but I sort of wish we would have got a little more of her because I found her character really interesting. Here's the sort of the yin to the yang.
Yeah,
Her father can't stand her. It's like,
I felt bad for Alexis, and then she gets killed and nobody like is the wiser. Like nobody's like, oh, figures out that this was actually this person died, like like they don't, nobody knows that, and it's sad. She never gets like any real justice or closure like that. I mean, I guess she does, but not that anybody knew about, you know?
Right. And she actually tries to like want to have a relationship with her dad. It's like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
It's such a good. It's it was interesting. She's such a good person. I'm like, man, I really like this character, and they're just gonna, yeah, they're killing her.
Yeah. And then they just nobody ever says, so that really was Alexis until Angelique killed her. Like nobody knows. She just died and they burned the coffin and then she's gone.
Do you think Christopher Pennock played the best sort of Jekyll and Hyde ever?
Oh, I don't know about ever. That's a tough call because I love Frederick March as Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, he won an Oscar for that. And I love Jack Palance as Jekyll and Hyde as well. Dan Curtis is Jekyll and Hyde. John Barrymore was an amazing Jekyll and Hyde. But I would say Chris Pennock is up there with them. Like he was very good. He was certainly better than Spencer Tracy. In my opinion, like Spencer Tracy, I didn't think I was miscast, honestly, in that I think he's a good actor. He was a great actor, but he was not well cast in that role. And I've seen other versions of Jekyll. I saw there was a Michael Caine version. I love Michael Caine. I kind of thought he was not perfect casting there on that one either. But Pennock was good. I don't know if I put him up as high as Frederick March,
Right.
because that's such an iconic portrayal, but he's up there definitely.
Yeah. He was really just amazing. I like, even though they like put this fake mustache on, it's like he just sells it. It's like he just goes with it. And it's like, even for television, it's like, man, this character's just really, you go in a second, 1 minute nice, 1 minute boom. And it was just a great portrayal of that. It felt fresh, you know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like something old you had seen prior, even though I had seen Jekyll and Hyde by that point. And I'm just like, this seems so different from anything before.
Yeah, it's a more, I guess, I mean, he's definitely the style, like he's modern, you know, it's set in obviously 1970 versus the 19th century, but he was just great at playing that pure id of Hyde, who's just the basest instincts of humanity in human form, and he's just horrible person, and people can sense, just like in the book too, like they can sense Hyde's evil. There's a warping of just the atmosphere around Hyde because he's so vile. And they reference that a few times with Jaeger when Jaeger's around, that they can sense there's just a presence of evil in the room. And Pennock was very good at playing that like crazy character, you know, but he was also very good at playing that very quiet, intellectual Jekyll character too. I thought he was really good in that, playing both of those parts.
So Colin Wood, The Old House, Collinsport, The Blue Whale, The Cannery. Goodness. Bangor, Maine, Wincliffe. What's your favorite location?
Oh, geez, so many awesome ones. Like that's a tough one too. I can't. I gotta say Colin Wood. I think Colin Wood is so iconic, and it's just like I didn't like it in the 91 series when they use a Greystone, because it's like you got to have the tower. It's just it's that silhouette of that house. And I was just there in October, and I grew up in Massachusetts, so I only live about maybe 45 minutes away from Seaview. So I've been there quite a few times just on the outside, but this was the first time I actually spent the night in the house. And it's really something else. Like, just I can't really describe the feeling of just, it's like this is here, this exists, this house exists. It's just chills, you get chills, and it's near the ocean, the waves crashing on the cliffs and all that, it's close to the water, so you can do the cliff walk near the house. But yeah, I'm going to say Colin Wood. It's such a beautiful house.
Do you think they should find a way to use the Seaview house in the series?
If they don't use that house itself, they should at least make a model of or a structure that looks like that house, that is evocative of that house.
Yeah, I agree. I think I said this in a video that I think by hook or crook, they should buy that house and use it. Literally,
sale.
Buy the house, use it.
Yes. Hey, look, there's some rich Dark Shadows fans out there. Hey, Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, you want to make up for what you did in that movie? Go buy us Colin Wood, and let's let it be used for fan gatherings and for filming of future Dark Shadows projects like Reincarnation. It would be great to have that house, or at least a model of that looks like that house as an exterior.
I think there's one like it in Pennsylvania, but I'm not sure.
Yes, a fan was like it was like a rich fan, I believe, that had that house built to look like Colin Wood inside and out. I mean, just like the foyer, the drawing room, everything. I was like, wow, that is awesome. I think it's sold though. I think that fan sold the house though. Who owns it now? I know it was for sale at one point. But I remember they showed, some video. There was like a TV interview or something, and the guy wouldn't show his face on camera, but he had the Barnabas ring. I know he was wearing the Barnabas ring and stuff. And I was like, oh man, can you imagine just waking up every day and you're in Collinwood? Like,
pinch me now hard.
Like, what do you? And then at night, you're like sitting in the house. It's like, what is the next supernatural horror that's going to affect me? Just go have a brandy, I guess. Turn on, light the fireplace, have a brandy.
My wife always she's like, what in the world would you do with a house that big? I said, anything you wanted to. I'm like, what do you mean? What would you do with a house that big? But it's. I think one way or the other, I'm with you. Find a way to incorporate that house in that series.
Yeah.
What about, because I know the original old house had burned down. Yeah. What do you think they could do to sort of, I don't know, maybe build a set for it or something?
I guess it depends on the budget they have. Like if they had like a huge budget like Burton had, I mean, they could build it, they could build the exterior and have a model. If they don't have the budget for it, then I would try to find a house that looks similar to the original one. It doesn't have to be exact, but I should definitely have those columns in the front, the big columns in the front. I think that's such a very memorable look for the old house that you've got to kind of have that, I think.
Yeah, I agree. There's, again, just have something to where it looks exactly like that old house. Whatever you got to do, if you got to build a set, build a set.
Yeah.
But because I love how they shot it, and even when they were close up, you felt these houses felt like such a presence. They were, the locations in a sense are characters in themselves. And that's what made Dark Shadows, again, just everything, the actors, the characters, the location, and the music, it just all gelled together. It's beautiful to watch. I've been trying to get more and more people to watch it. I told my one friend who's a huge Halloween fan, I said, you got to go watch this. You'll enjoy the hell out of it. But it's just a fun show to watch. I'm trying to think. Is there do you have a top 5? What's your top 5 favorite moments in Dark Shadows?
Oh God! Wow, that's some tough questions here. Wow. Okay. I don't know if these are going to be in any particular order.
They don't have to be.
The hand coming out of the coffin and grabbing Willie Loomis when Willie breaks into the mausoleum, and that scene is legendary. So definitely that one. Um, Angelique putting the curse on Barnabas.
Yeah.
Definitely an iconic scene. Um, First time we see Quentin's ghost, Quentin and Beth. I love that when they just kind of step out of the shadows in that room. It's like, oh my God, this is there they are, that's who they're talking to on the phone. Love that scene. Oh, and also when David's, oh God, maybe I should replace that with this one. When there's a chilling scene when, like, it's right out of Turn of the Screw, when David is unconscious, and then he just wakes up and he says something really ominous to Elizabeth, and then he starts laughing, and you hear Quentin's laughter echoing David's in the house. I love that. That's a really creepy moment in the show. And then probably 1995, when Barnabas and Julia see the ruins of Colin Wood when they come down the stairs, and Colin Wood is just a disaster area. Like, that is such a memorable, because it's so shocking. It's like, oh my God, look at what happened to what the hell happened to this house, to Colin Wood, to our Colin Wood, like what happened to it? And that is a very iconic scene. So I really, really like that one too. So those are some of my favorite scenes.
I asked this on Facebook and Twitter. What was your most shocking plot twist?
Shocking plot twist. It's a tough one. Probably. This is, I have to think about this one. Shocking plot twist. When I first watched this show,
yeah, sure.
Barnabas had a wooden stake driven through his heart by Pansy / Charity Trask.
Yeah.
Pretty damn shocking. I was like, what? Oh no. Barnabas has been destroyed. Of course, I knew he wasn't, like I knew they weren't gonna like off Barnabas, but that was a pretty shocking scene.
Yeah.
And certainly the fans at the time were quite shocked, given all the letters that poured into ABC when that happened.
Yeah, I think mine was when Sky Rumson being a member of the Leviathan. I don't know why that one stands out most to me, but that one was like, what now?
Yeah, he was a piece of garbage, that guy. Like, he turned out to be a real, like, yep.
Oh my goodness. I was trying to think if there was something else I was going to ask you. I don't think I have any more questions for you. I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. No, you had some amazing questions. Those were tough questions. I really had to think about some of those. Like the 5, I know after we hang up, I'm gonna think of like 20 more. Oh, like Barnabas and Julia killing Woodard was so heartbreaking. Sarah, oh my God, Sarah telling Barnabas, like, what was that rhyme you taught you taught me when, and telling him that she, that she won't return until he relearns that. And Barnabas cries, like, that was heart-wrenching, and she never did return. Notice that. Like, it's like, oh, I guess Barnabas never really learned the lesson. That yeah, I'm gonna add those moments too, because those are pretty memorable. So okay.
Sarah's death is just heartbreaking.
Oh, I cry whenever I see that. That's so,
like, especially when Jonathan's like is just hugging her. You feel it.
You do, and then right as it ends, you hear the flute, the Robert Cover. It's like, oh God, tears.
It is. It's just, here's this little kid. It's innocent, and it's like, my God, like,
yeah.
Beautiful, just beautiful job by everybody. But thank you so much for giving me your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Jewel. It was a pleasure talking with you. Absolutely. That was really fun.
It was my pleasure. If you guys need to go check out Danielle's channel, Terror at Colin Wood. Link will be in the description box. Hit her up on Twitter at Penny Dreadful. Am I correct about that one?
Dan, I think it's I don't use Twitter as much, but I think it's Danielle 13 Penny, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think so.
I'll get this right one day, I think. I'm horrible.
So I don't even remember my own Twitter handle. I'm like, what was it again, Jewel? I don't remember.
My wife saw my Twitter handle. She goes, the only reason you chose that says so you would remember it. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. That's why I remember that one. Oh my God. But thank you again so much for joining me tonight. It was a huge honor and my pleasure to have you on. Go check out Danielle's channel. It's really great. Lots of guest interviews. And she's got Mark B. Perry coming on, which is super, super awesome. So link will be in the description box. You have a great night, Danielle, and have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Merry Christmas, Jewel. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.